Hey everyone, thank you for watching. Today's video I'm really excited to do. It is going to be a chatty get ready with me. I'm going to share with you how I got this look. I am also using the products that I chose for my current Shopped My Stash bag. So if you haven't yet seen the video where I'm choosing products for my makeup collection that I want to show a little bit more love to, get some more use out of them, I will link that video down below, and I definitely wanted to do a get ready with me using those products. Today's video is also going to be a tag. I'm going to be taking on the beauty brand tag. This was started by Tara Brooke. I will have her video linked to my description box. She tagged me on Twitter, and when I went and looked at her video, I was like, these are such great questions. I'd actually been working on a tag somewhat like along these lines as well, but I've only come up with 2 questions for it, and I thought that she just had great ones, and when I saw it I was like, I definitely have to do this, and I felt like I had a lot to say. Before we do hop into the get ready with me and the tags, I do want to say that there is a sponsor on today's video. This video is sponsored by HelloFresh. Thank you so much to HelloFresh for partnering with me again. I've worked with them in the past and I always get really excited to work with them. Mitch and I, my husband and I, definitely do love the meal delivery service. We only have the 2 of us to cook for. Sometimes we can get a little perplexed at what we want to make for dinner, and I love having HelloFresh has 22 or more options every single week of different meals. There's different selections that you can choose from: a traditional, vegetarian. You can input if there's any restrictions that you might have. You can put those into your profile as well, so when the meals do generate for you every week, you have a ton of different options to choose from, which is great because it really gets us stuck out of our kind of dinner rut that we fall into. I really love it because it helps with the grocery shopping aspect. One thing that I don't love, we made a meal on our own the other night. I found it on Pinterest, I think it was, and I had to go out and purchase a little bit of a sauce. We needed a teaspoon, I think, for this recipe, or 2 teaspoons. The only thing I could find was a big old jug. It really helps because you get the pre-portioned ingredients delivered right to your door, so it's really easy to make everything. The recipe cards are super easy to follow. A lot of times Mitch is the one that does the cooking in the kitchen. I like to think of myself as the sous chef. I like to think of myself as someone who can make conversation while drinking wine while we make dinner in the kitchen. I think that's a very important, like, you just need that person in your life, and that person is me. HelloFresh did also give me a code, so that'll be on the screen here. It'll also be in the description box with a link to the website if you are interested, and that will get you your first 10 meals free. There is a purchase required with that as well, but if you use that code, you will have 10 free meals, which is pretty fantastic. Again, this is just a service that Mitch and I really enjoy. It makes sense to us and our lifestyle, and it just really helps us out every single week. Like, it's a way for us to get out of our kind of comfort zone when it comes to making the same meals all the time. We get to find new recipes and new things that we really enjoy, and it's something that we get to do together, even though I normally don't do any of the actual cooking parts, because just trust me, it's better that way for everybody. But thank you so much to HelloFresh for sponsoring this video. Again, the link and my code in there for the 10 free meals will be in the description box if you want to check that out. Thank you guys for continuing to support me and letting me have amazing sponsors on my video. I really do appreciate it. But if you're ready to get into this get ready with me and jump into these questions, why don't we go ahead and get started? Hello. Okay, jumping into it. So I'm using all the products from my Shop My Stash bag, so I'm probably not going to be touching on what it is that I'm using. I am also a little bit under the weather, if you can tell in my voice. I had a cough the night before I was filming, and then I woke up today with just kind of like head cold symptoms, which is not great, but that's okay. We're gonna get through this as best as we can. And there are 15 questions to answer, and these are like, they were kind of harder questions. This wasn't a tag where I knew I could just sit down and film and say whatever came off the top of my head. Like, I needed to think about these questions and kind of look around and look back at old videos and all of that. First question is, think back to when you first started your makeup collection. Are there any brands you used then that you still use today? So I'm gonna pose this question as like, once I really started getting on YouTube and building my collection from there. When I was really starting to get serious about learning makeup and how to do it and building a collection and watching tutorials on YouTube, and then subsequently starting my own YouTube channel, some of the brands, I used a lot of drugstore brands. I would go to, you know, Walgreens and Target and try to buy products from there, because my thing with my makeup journey is that I could never really understand makeup and how to apply it, and I couldn't look at a picture and then recreate that look. I don't have a very visual mind, so stuff like that for me is really challenging. So when I was able to find tutorials and like step through guides of where to put makeup, you know, what's best to use makeup, to apply it, and also really the why, that definitely helped me out a lot. But I still didn't want to go out and buy really expensive makeup because I was really worried about wasting it and becoming frustrated, because I had totally done that before, where I went out and bought something really expensive and then got home and was like, I don't know what I'm doing, and then it was a waste of money and I felt really stupid. So I would say for some of the drugstore brands that I still use quite a bit, I definitely think of CoverGirl. CoverGirl was one of the first makeup brands that I really started using a lot because my mom used CoverGirl. I used a lot of e.l.f. cosmetics as well. They're one that I don't use as much anymore, but I tend to kind of like side-eye their releases. I did just purchase their hydrating camo concealer, and actually their bronzer and blush. I had a couple of new e.l.f. Products in my most recent Ulta haul, but definitely CoverGirl is one that I really they're kind of the first one that pops into my mind when I think about brands that I used back then that I still use a lot or continue to buy from, or their releases interest me. Question number 2 is kind of sparked off that. It says, which brands have you moved on from? So again, the first brand that popped into my head was another drugstore brand, and this one was Maybelline. And it's not that I don't use anything from Maybelline, or like I don't have anything against Maybelline per se, but the Maybelline was a brand that I used all of the time. And my first, you know, several months of being on YouTube was very heavily Maybelline. They were a drugstore brand. They were easily accessible, and I felt like I liked a lot of products from them. I really liked their mascaras, but just in general, I bought a lot of products from Maybelline. I'm truly sitting here trying to think of like, when was the last time I mentioned Maybelline in a Will I Buy It video, the series that I do every single week touching on new makeup releases. Like what has been Maybelline's latest release that they have done, and I can't think of it off the top of my head. I don't feel like I hear much from Maybelline, and they're just one that I mean, I feel like I just simply kind of moved on from. Another one that I thought of was BH Cosmetics. BH was a brand that I used a lot. I was buying a lot from them even before I started YouTube. The first YouTuber I ever started watching, beauty YouTuber that I started watching, was Carly Bible, and she used BH Cosmetics a lot, and she went on to do a collaboration with BH, but she definitely recommended BH a lot, and I purchased a lot off of Carly Bible's recommendations when I was first getting started. And I had a brush set. It's funny because I actually posted a picture recently on, I think it was Twitter and my Instagram stories. If I will remember, I'll pop it over here. But it was a photo that came up on my time hop, so you can see what you posted on this day a couple years ago, or all of that. And this photo popped up, and it was from a Vegas trip that I took when I was in Vegas doing a book signing. So I'm also an author. And you can see my makeup spread out in front of me on the bathroom counter. And I asked, you know, what is it that you can see? And, you know, people are writing in Milani Luminoso. There was the NYX Jumbo White Eye Pencil. Who remembers that? That was there. There was a BH Cosmetics brush roll. A NYX bronzer was on there too. So it was funny to look back at that photo and kind of remember some of my makeup preferences from then. But yeah, definitely BH Cosmetics. I purchased a lot from them. I purchased a lot of brushes. I really liked purchasing their brushes because they were so affordable, and I was trying to learn what brushes worked best for different just types of makeup that I was applying, or different techniques. It really helped me, instead of going out and spending a ton of money on one single brush and then being like, ooh, I actually don't love this brush. Because, you know, makeup brushes, they generally will say like, oh, this is a blush brush, this is a bronzer brush, but you can use brushes for whatever it is you want. And a lot of times I use an angled contour brush as a blush brush. Those kind of slanted brushes are my favorite for blush. So it was really nice for me to be able to learn the different ways, but BH just doesn't call my attention anymore. Again, I've just kind of moved on from them. Question number 3 is, are there any brands you thought were so expensive that you'd never buy anything from them but now consider at least one of their products to be a holy grail. If so, which brand and which product? Well, that's funny that you asked this question as I pull out the powder that I'm going to be using. This powder is from Pat McGrath. Pat McGrath was a brand that I was like, there's just no way I'll ever be able to try anything from Pat McGrath. Her prices are so expensive. Palettes, powders, foundations, whatever it may be, like, she's just a pricey brand, you know? So I thought, it's never gonna happen. And I now love the Pat McGrath Sublime Foundation. I did, oh my poor voice. I have a water here. Oh, sick days, no sick days. I did a video recently ranking all of the foundations that I tried in 2019. I will link it. I will tell you that Pat McGrath is up there because I love that foundation. It's one that makes me feel confident. I mean, you could probably see on my skin before I put foundation on, I have a lot of redness. I was dealing with a lot of breakouts. That's a foundation that when I wear it, I feel very confident. I feel a lot more comfortable in my skin. As someone who hasn't dealt with acne in 12 years, it's very jarring when you don't recognize yourself. The process of my skin changing through the last few months has it's definitely affected my self-esteem, and then with things that are going on behind the scenes personally, it's just been a bit of a difficult road for me. I don't feel the best about myself, and there's definitely days where are, you know, not as good as others, but something about that Pat McGrath foundation, it just works with my skin so well. And so if there's times where I'm either filming a video that maybe I think like might do well view-wise, I'm like, oh, make sure you put the Pat McGrath foundation on because it'll just make me feel a little bit better, and maybe I won't have to deal with all the ignorant comments of people telling me that I'm not beautiful because I have redness on my skin. You know, it's just one of those things that, like, I truly hope that these people saying that don't have children or don't have people in their life that they could be spreading that message to, because what a horrible, awful thing to tell another person. When I went, like, I went on a trip recently to Vegas to be with my mom and to meet a couple other YouTubers, and I brought the Pat McGrath foundation because, again, I just think it looks so good on my skin, and it really helps right now as I'm, you know, struggling with my appearance. So but that's a very expensive foundation. It's $68, and I know when I talk about how much I love it, I do get some pushback from people saying that I'm crazy. I do understand, but from the first time I tried it, I loved that foundation. As I continued to use it, and as I continued to use it as my skin struggles only appeared to be getting worse and not better, it was the one I just kept reaching for and just kept reaching for. It's definitely become a favorite of mine. It's been a foundation that I don't want to not have in my collection. It's a foundation that I don't want to not have with me, even if I'm just going out of town or if I am going, you know, a little bit farther, because I know that it makes me feel better, and that to me is a pretty important thing. But I would have never have thought that I would have loved a Pat McGrath product as much as I do that foundation, but I really do. Let's see, number 4 is, what is a popular brand that you've never tried and don't think you ever will, and why? This one was a little bit hard for me when I saw it, because I definitely try a lot of makeup these days with a YouTube channel, with just buying things that I'm interested in, buying things that, you know, people tell me that they're really interested in, and then if I'm interested in it, I'm like, okay, you know, I'll go ahead and try it. I do get PR as an influencer, so sometimes I'm able to try out brands that way. I also have some, I have such an amazing Sam Squad around me. I have such an amazing community. I've been able to try brands through being gifted products, which is incredible. Just because you're a YouTuber and this is what you do, it doesn't mean that you have like a secret fund for money. Like that's not a thing. Yeah, I kind of thought that was a thing when I started my YouTube channel, because I was like, look around, everyone's showing the new makeup and doing these huge hauls, like there must be some sort of secret. There's no secret. The answer is debt. When people are so kind that they want to send you in a gift so you can try something because you know that it can help you with reviews and in your videos, but also just to have the knowledge of when people ask you, what is this formula compared to this formula? That was a question I got so much in the beginning of my YouTube days, and it made me feel really bad, because I thought, well, I have this YouTube channel and I'm supposed to be giving reviews and you know, comparisons and telling people what I think they should get versus what I think they don't, but I haven't tried all of the different formulas. I don't know. I haven't tried all the different shades. I can't just give comparison photos. Like, what do I do? So it's really, really nice when you have a community around you that is so willing to help you out in your journey as well. So that's amazing. So it was kind of hard for me to think of brands that I haven't tried, because I mean, definitely I haven't tried every single brand, don't get me wrong, but I was trying to think of like the really popular ones that I haven't tried yet. One that came to my mind was Jeffree Star. I don't know if I think everyone would probably have their different views and everything, of course, but I actually haven't tried any of his products yet. I did receive a palette in a goodie bag, and I was thinking about trying it, but I don't know. I mentioned this in my most recent Will I Buy It video, and I had to keep a close eye on the comments that day because people were fighting and calling each other names in the comment section, and I just won't have that. That's not how it goes down. That's not how it goes down over here. And so once again, it kind of scared me away from featuring his products on here, because it's really hard for me to see when one another can turn so easily against each other just because of differing views and differing opinions. I don't like that. Sure, there's gonna be some, but I really like, I felt like I was kind of stumped on this question, because even if like sometimes it's just been a sample that I've tried, or you know, just like a mini of something that I've gotten as like a point perk, and I've never tried anything else from the brand again, but I've, you know, technically have tried them. So yeah, that one was kind of hard for me to think of. Moving on to number 5, what brand perfectly encapsulates your makeup aesthetic? Explain. I can't even speak today. Yikes. Okay. This was another one that I kind of looked at it and was like, I don't know. I feel like maybe at one point there was like a makeup aesthetic tag going around or something, and I didn't do it because I was like, I don't know. For me, I typically like more neutral makeup. You don't generally see me in a lot of really bold, colorful looks, like a lot of intricate like artwork and stuff on my eyes. Again, I'm not, like, I don't have the best visual mind there, so sometimes it's really overwhelming for me to think about even doing a look like that, because I'm like, what? Huh? I don't know how they do that. So I like more neutral, a little bit more natural. I do really like quick and easy looks. I tend to gravitate towards makeup that is just kind of user-friendly, easy to use. I like thinking about like eyeshadows and such. I like eyeshadows that are a little bit more buildable versus really pigmented right off the bat. So, you know, I know a lot of people obviously have a differing opinion or preference when it comes to that. So I don't know, and I kind of sometimes can feel like my preferences can change versus just what I like, or if there's a certain trend that I'm leaning towards. So I didn't think that I had like a really solid answer for this one, but one brand that I thought of that I kind of kept coming back to was Charlotte Tilbury. I really like when I look at the Charlotte Tilbury like Instagram feed and just the different models with the different looks with the different products on, a lot of that kind of speaks to me. It's naturally beautiful, but with a bit of a boost. And I just think a lot of the looks speak to me. I get a lot of inspiration looking at the Charlotte Tilbury page. The products I find to be really easy to use for the most part. I don't love absolutely everything from Charlotte Tilbury. That's kind of impossible to find with a brand. There's gonna be hits and misses, but I have a lot of hits from Charlotte Tilbury, and I did a video recently called 5 products that I didn't expect to love. I think it was yesterday's upload actually. And when I was thinking of this video and the 5 products I wanted to include, I could have done 5 products from Charlotte Tilbury's line alone. I ended up featuring just one in there from her, but there was multiple products that I could have featured, because I would think like, this isn't really my vibe. This isn't what I love to use. Like her, I think I have it right here because I just used it the other day. This is her Beauty Wand highlighter. This is a new shade in Pillow Talk, but she has a couple of shades out in this Beauty Wand highlight. It's a cream liquid highlight. I just would never have thought I would have loved it as much as I love that, because I'm not someone who gravitates towards cream and liquid products, but sometimes cream products can be kind of explained as a little bit more natural looking, and again, that's kind of Charlotte's vibe. Everything is just kind of like this easy, natural, yet elevated makeup look, and I think that a lot of times that's what I'm tending to go for. So her brand just continues to call to me and continues to call to me, and the more that I'm able to try out from Charlotte Tilbury, whether purchasing myself because I do purchase from the brand, or I do get some PR from them as well, I tend to like so many of the products. So if I had to like pick one, I would probably say Charlotte, which, you know, she's one of my friends, so she's gonna be real excited to see this. She's probably gonna bring me like an extra piece of chocolate to the next girls' night. Whew. Moving over to number 6, are there any brands you haven't wanted to try purely because you don't like their packaging? I was thinking about this one, and I was kind of looking through Instagram and like some of my past like will I buy it videos. Like I said, this wasn't a tag that I felt like you could just kind of sit down and do. Like, you had to be thinking about it for sure. And I don't know if there's any brands that I'm like, I'm not buying that just because I don't like your packaging, but I think that there's brands that I haven't gravitated towards because their packaging doesn't really jump out at me or speak to me. I've talked about KKW Beauty in the past, which is Kim Kardashian's makeup line. Their packaging just really doesn't call to me, and I sometimes wonder if maybe with some of their eyeshadow palettes and such, if it would be in different packaging, if I would be like, ooh, maybe that one's cool, you know what I'm saying? So I thought of that brand but I know that it makes sense to Kim Kardashian, like the nude, it totally makes sense to her and I get it, but I just can't say it's really spoke to me as a consumer. I think there's brands that I haven't tried necessarily just because of their packaging, but I think there's brands that it hasn't helped me want to buy from them because of packaging. I hope that makes sense. Did my brows off camera with the Nars Brow Perfector. I'm also gonna spray my face before I start with my eyes. I have the MAC Fix Plus Lavender, and I have to use it with 2 hands because it's about gone. Question 7, kind of going back to the packaging, is there a brand that you've only tried because their packaging lured you in? If so, were you happy with the actual product? I try to be pretty conscious of not buying just for packaging. Like, the actual product still has to interest me. This was another hard one for me. For my palette, I'm using the Dose of Colors Desi X Katie Friendcation palette. A lot of times, it's usually the actual product that's calling me in, but if there's something about the packaging that is also alluring to me, I'm like, oh, okay, then I can do it. The product that I thought of, though, was the Too Faced chocolate chip palette. I don't know, it just called to like the sweet lover in me. I liked that it was mini. This was even before like I was like really crazed with minis, but I just thought it was so cute. It's in this like white packaging. I don't know, I thought it was super cute. I bought it and I hated it. I know a lot of people have told me that they have found my channel through my review of the Too Faced white chocolate chip, whatever that palette was called. You guys know what I'm talking about. I did not like that palette and I was mad. 8 is, some would say drugstore and mid-range prices are starting to overlap. What drugstore beauty brands are guilty of making this happen, and what are your thoughts on rising drugstore makeup prices? One of the first brands I thought about when I read this question was Physicians Formula, but I do kind of feel like Physicians Formula has kind of been more expensive even back in the day. I can remember hearing people start to talk really highly about, this bronzer. It didn't really do that well on YouTube, so you might not be familiar with it, but it's the butter bronzer from Physicians Formula. There was like a little bit of chatter happening at one time, and I was like, oh, I should go check out this bronzer and see what I think. And I remember being like, this brand is expensive. This is at CVS. Like, why are you charging me so much money? I feel like NYX has really creeped up in the past few years. I remember one time going to buy a primer from them at like Target, and it was like $17 for a primer. And I was like, what? That's weird, like for a primer from NYX? But then also in a whole, I feel like a lot of brands are just slowly starting to creep up there in price. I feel like some of the brands that maybe haven't changed a lot are Wet n Wild. I still feel like keeps it pretty affordable. Also e.l.f. I feel like e.l.f. hasn't really raised their prices a whole ton. I used to buy, you know, when I was talking about brushes, I used to buy e.l.f. brushes a ton because you could get them at Target for like $1 and $2 for brushes. And I was like, perfect, sign me up. Mine is, with anti-consumerism and an eat the rich mentality starting to take hold in the YouTube beauty space, are there any brands you still feel a loyalty to? If so, why? And yeah, I think so. I'm definitely someone who, I like to think of myself as a pretty loyal person, and I think that with consumerism and beyond, I mean, just like, you know, I'm thinking like friendship wise and stuff, I tend to think that one of my better qualities is that I'm a pretty loyal person. And when I find someone that I'm loyal to, I'm really like, I'm all in type of thing. But I definitely do also have that with consumerism. There's a lot of brands that once I find that I love them, or something about them just calls to me, or I'm not really like put down by them a lot, I tend to continually be loyal to them. So sometimes I feel like I feature a lot of the same brands on my channel, and I wish I could, you know, sometimes I have that thought of like, I need to branch out more, and I need to constantly be featuring new brands and really being, you know, known for that. But at the same time, that just kind of goes back to my loyalty, and I will continually repurchase and promote and all of that. Number 10 is, have you ever felt betrayed by a brand? And if so, what happened? Yes. I mean, it's not like that deep or anything, but yeah, I have, by Tarte. I can still remember being so upset with Tarte Cosmetics over their freaking face, what was it called? Oh, I'm gonna have to Google it, because do you guys ever have, when you're like not feeling well, you feel like your brain just doesn't fire on all cylinders, and you're like, what am I talking about? It's the Clay Play Face Shaping Palette. I wanted to switch Clay and Play, and I was like, that doesn't sound right, but the Tarte Clay Play palette. When the first one came out, I bought it, and I was super excited about it. It was a palette that had eye shades and then also face shades, and I just kind of loved having a little bit of everything in there. But the first one that came out, I think it was like, was it 2 contour shades and a bronzer shade or something along those lines? But the eyeshadow shades, and I thought, this is great. And then they were like, oh, we're coming out with another one. We're coming out with the Clay Play 2 palette. And I was like, oh, this is so exciting. And they showed a picture of the Clay Play 2, and it still had the eyeshadows, but the face shades were different, and now there was a highlight, and there was also a blush and a bronzer. And I was like, oh my gosh, I'm gonna love this even more than the first one. I can't wait. And I went out and bought it, and it was, oh, Samantha, this is what I mean by I'm not running on all cylinders. This was my inner corner highlight, and I put it into the shades that I put on my lower lash line. Man, okay, I'm just gonna use this is the Sigma E56. This is what I use for the lid, but that's just what we're gonna do, because yikes. Gosh, that could have been really bad. Can you imagine if I would have just put, so I went out and bought the Clay Play 2, and there ended up being like a whole scandal behind it. I had a whole video about it as well, because I was like really fired up too. But they essentially only switched like, was it like 4 shades out of the palette? Like a bunch of the eyeshadows were the same. So they only changed a few of the shades. It wasn't actually a new palette. And then even the shade names in the palette, the product, the actual packaging, the actual palette was exactly the same. They just put a sticker over it to say like Clay Play 2, but even the shades, all of the shades had the same name. And even though I can't remember what it was exactly, but let's say in the first palette there was a white shade and it was called white. Well, in the second palette there was now a black shade, but it was still called white. Like it was something like that. Like it didn't make any sense. Like you could tell, like it was so clearly not thought out. I still didn't really understand. Tarte came out and was like, oh, people just said they really wanted to see another one and like different face shades and all of that, so we were just doing the best we could. And it was like, no. So I was actually really, really mad about that. And Tarte had been doing some other things that I just wasn't really a big fan of, but I try to give like the benefit of the doubt. I try to give second chances. I try not to like jump to the worst conclusions about everybody in the world, because I don't think that that's a very fun way to live life. But after that, and after their response, I was like, no. I kind of felt betrayed. They were a favorite brand of mine. And that just left a really bad taste in my mouth. Number 10, or no, sorry, number 11, are there any brands that you feel give off exclusivity vibes, making you feel like you aren't cool or pretty enough to buy from them? If so, which brand and why? This is kind of a hard question too. You know, I was just talking about the Tom Ford brand in my most recent Will I Buy It video, that they're coming out with a new foundation that's $150. That's really expensive for a foundation. That to me, that definitely has like some exclusivity tied to it. But other than that, I couldn't really think of a lot. One thing that kind of popped into my head is that sometimes with certain brands, or like when they're releasing certain products, or you know, there's different campaigns, I can never open this Elcie highlight for the life of me. So like, excuse my weird facial expressions as I tried to open this. Something I thought of is because I am someone who I like a little bit more neutral makeup and all of that, sometimes products can come out, or there are certain brands that are like this is for like the edgy people and like bold and like that to me is like, wow, that's not me. Like sometimes I like to get out of my comfort zone and mix things up, but when it's like calling all, I don't know, just like bold, beautiful, amazing, edgy people, I'm like, oh, okay, that's probably not me. But like really that's not that deep, because I love that there's a lot of brands and there's a lot of differences with brands. Like I'm someone who, I think that this is probably an unpopular opinion, but I like to see a lot of different brands, and a lot of them that have kind of their own aesthetic that we were talking about earlier. They have their own vibe, and it might not cater to everybody, but I love that we now live in a time where there's more options out there for us, because we shouldn't all have to be the same person. We all shouldn't have to look alike. We all shouldn't have to have the same preferences, but there should be options out there for us. So I like when I see, there's definitely, and I think there's a question coming up about this too, about, you know, there being so much now and there being kind of this fatigue. But if you do think about it, on the flip side, it means that there's probably brands coming out with products that are working for people or are calling to people that prior couldn't find things for them. So that's what I think is a good thing. So I try to keep that in mind too. But so yeah, I don't really like get like butthurt about it, to be honest. Number 12. Okay, here's that question. What's worse, choice fatigue, exhaustion from too many makeup releases, or a lackluster quarterly launch from a brand you're typically excited about? That's a hard question, because, you know, I feel like I gravitate towards brands that do both. Like I mentioned, I really do like ColourPop, and they can come out with a new release every single week. I feel like they've kind of slowed down in the last few weeks here, but I mean, they're a brand that they can come out with new product every single week. Now I do think the good thing about ColourPop is that they do make everything in-house. I think it's really interesting to find the brands and learn about the ones that can make everything on site right there, because it's just a lot better than having products being made and just sitting around and being wasteful. So I also like the concept behind ColourPop and how they can actually run their brand. I think that's a cool thing, but I definitely think that they could contribute to makeup fatigue for sure. But then it goes back to there being so many products available for a bunch of different people, and you know, you as one person doesn't have to buy absolutely everything from a brand. Even though they're one of my favorites, I don't have any interest in buying every single 9-pan palette that comes out from ColourPop. Another brand I think of is Anastasia Beverly Hills. I can remember when Anastasia would come out with a new palette, you know, kind of quarterly, and I would be so excited for it to see what it was, and I would want to get it. Well, then Anastasia kind of changed a little bit, and they started coming out with releases nearly every week as well, and it kind of fell off for me, because also I wasn't as much loving what they were releasing. So that's a really hard question, because I can definitely see both sides of it. I think sometimes maybe it's a bigger letdown when you've been waiting for something to come out and then it doesn't quite meet the expectations, where it's like if you know something's coming every week, you don't necessarily feel that pull to grab it. So you're like, oh, you know, maybe the next release. I don't know. But I don't know. How would you guys answer that one? That's kind of a tough one. And then we have number 13, have brand trips or sponsored videos ever made you actually interested in a product or beauty launch the brand was promoting? Yeah, definitely. I mean, a lot of times I find certain products because because of being in sponsored videos. So this video was sponsored by HelloFresh. That was actually how I found meal delivery services, was through other YouTubers talking about them. And I signed up for them first by myself on my own before I ever having partnerships with them. So yeah, I think that's a great thing. I'm gonna go ahead and do my lip products with this Milk makeup, and then I'll keep talking. Love this color on its own. This is the Farewell Tour for my Milk Cream lipstick. If you haven't seen my Shop Mustache video, again, I'd recommend you watch it. But with the eye look, I'm going to top it with some of the Milani Nude Shimmer Gloss, just to kind of tie everything together a little bit more. Going back to that question, so no, and I feel like with brand trips, I felt like I've never had an issue with the brand trips, even from when I first got on YouTube, and I didn't even, like, I didn't have a channel yet, but I would see people going on the brand trips. I always thought that was a cool thing, because I guess I'm someone who, not even just the beauty industry in particular, but I'm a writer. One of my dreams when I was younger was to work for a magazine, to be a writer or an editor at a magazine, because that's what I grew up with, was reading the magazines, and that's where I would find my information. And in looking at potential jobs and internships, and just looking at the industry a little bit more, you know, brand trips are commonplace. This is not a lot. I think a lot of people who are now privy to getting a behind the scenes look at this industry think that this is a new thing that started with influencers, and it's not. This is something that's been going on for years and decades. You just didn't know about it, because with social media and the technology that we have now, you can see, you just get more information on behind the scenes of how things actually run. Now, whether that makes you angry or it makes you just feel like you have more knowledge, that's up to you. But as someone who has had that knowledge, when I first started seeing about the brand trips, nothing, like, no alarm bells went off. I wasn't like, wow, that's crazy, or wow, that's bad, or wow, that's not okay. Because I was like, oh yeah, this makes sense, because at one point with this industry, it was the magazines that were selling and converting products for brands, and now it definitely is the influencers, it is YouTube channels, it is people who are willing to come on the internet to give their opinions, to show their bare faces on the internet, and to give their opinions on how products worked. That's what's converting, and that's where the sales are coming from. So it 1000% makes sense to also be taking these influencers on these trips. So I've never had a problem with brand trips ever. I know sometimes for me, I feel like the only thing that I kind of get kind of like about is sometimes you feel like you see the same 5 people, 10 people going on the trips, and there's so many people in this space, and there's so many great ones. I think it would be really amazing to see brands reach out and work with other people, and I also think it'd be a really good way, like, I think it would be a smart business decision, even if going with someone like a micro influencer or someone who just has a smaller number. I think that it's a good business decision. I think it would put more eyes on that brand if they started to expand out from simply the group of 10. And I don't want to take anything away from those people, because I know that they had to work really hard. Another thing, and I'm sorry I'm going off on kind of a tangent here, but one comment I get that I just don't agree with is when people say, like, oh wow, you get so much free makeup, meaning the makeup that I get in PR, and this makeup is not free. You know, even if I'm getting it not for a sponsorship or something like that, when you start a YouTube channel and when you start social media, you don't just automatically get put on a list and then have brands sending you things. You have to work for it. You have to get your name out there. You have to promote yourself. You have to market yourself. You have to build your audience. You have to engage with your audience. You have to be consistent at putting out content and videos. And a lot of times, you know, brands find me because I'm constantly tagging them. I'm constantly talking about them. I'm buying their products. I'm using their products. I'm showing how I use their products. That's how brands find me. It's not free. That was kind of like way off subject, but I just wanted to say that. I talked about it in my podcast once, but just thought I'd mention it here. Going back to brand trips, I just think it's cool to see that side, because again, I think with the world that we live in today, a lot of things can be more transparent. You know, obviously, of course, you can put filters on everything and like sparkly shiny things and all of that, but at the same time, there's a lot more transparency because we're able to show that, which I think is a good thing. So Number 14, we have 2 more questions. Are there any indie brands you hope to see sold at Ulta or Sephora in the future? Definitely. I've done videos on this in the past about brands that I wish to see at Ulta and Sephora. Thinking of some indie brands, I thought of Sydney Grace. I think that they have really good products. They just came out with new eyeshadows, new eyeshadow palettes recently, and I think those are really nice. I was using some brushes earlier from Alamar Cosmetics. I think I haven't tried everything from the brand, but the products that I have tried I do think are really good, so I think that would be really exciting to see. And then also I thought of Maybe Cosmetics. They actually just recently came out with a mascara that I have been trying out. This is their Hidden Talent mascara, but they have eyeshadow palettes, they have blushes. Their newest release is this mascara. And I really like the concept behind that brand too. So yeah, I would say Maybe Cosmetics. Then the final question is, if you could give any beauty brand a rebranding, which brand would it be and what elements of the brand would you modify? So I kind of instantly thought of Benefit Cosmetics and their box packaging, like with their highlighters. I just saw that they were coming out with some new face palettes, and it looks to be, I like Benefit Cosmetics. I like a lot from them. I love their brow products. They continue to be my holy grails. I love them. I go through them. I repurchase them myself as well. I think that they're great. But I would say their box packaging is ready for a revamp. I think it's time. I think that could happen. And then also with Benefit, I feel like a lot of times they come out with the same things. They just kind of repackage them, or like one time they did this big collaboration with like 4 or 5 really big influencers, where literally they took a product that was already there but put the influencer's face on the packaging instead, and it was like a huge thing. It was a huge deal, and I was kind of like, what? I can understand the concept behind kind of doing that, but I think it was when Benefit started to really be known as like only doing that instead of coming up with new products or new things. It was just constantly feeling that way. I think that is something that I would say like maybe we could work on as well. But again, I like the brand. I still like, I still continue to buy my brow products from them and a lot of other things, and I do think that they do cool things. They're doing their Benefit brow search right now. I think that's been a really cool thing to see some of the people that I know in this industry be able to do the brow boot camps or whatnot, and the opportunities that they've had from them, the connections that they've made from them. I think that's a really neat thing. I would love to see more brands do stuff like that in the future. After that is today's makeup look using all the products that are in my current Shopped My Stash bag. I hope that you guys enjoyed seeing this and answering the questions to the beauty brand tag. Thank you so much to Tara for tagging me. I had a lot of fun with these questions. They were tough. She came up with some hard ones, but I thought that they were really fun. So please make sure to check out her channel. Let her know that I was sending you. If you guys want to do this tag, I would love to see it, because I definitely do think that these questions are very thought-provoking, and it was just a lot of fun to do this while getting ready. Thank you so much to HelloFresh for sponsoring this video. Again, my link and also that discount code will be in the description box if you're interested in checking them out. Other than that though, if you guys did enjoy this one, I hope that you'll give it a thumbs up. I hope that you'll also consider subscribing before you go, and I will see you in my next video. Bye.